Falmouth all-weather lifeboat crew were paged at 11:40 p.m. on Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2005. It was a wild, stormy night. Falmouth Coast Guard asked them to assist the general cargo vessel Galena, which was without power 11 miles along the coast. With 8 crewmen aboard, she was drifting helplessly towards the rocky shore. Help was needed urgently.
That was the third time we've been out in just over 24 hours, and we've been out previously that night. And I knew the forecast was pretty poor, so I thought, you know, this is going to be a dirty night.
The conditions were the worst I've ever been in. We don't often have to go out in conditions such as that, and that was big seas.
In charge of Falmouth's all-weather 7-class lifeboat, the Richard Cox Scott, that night, was 31-year-old Mark Pollard. It was Mark's first big shout since being made coxswain the previous summer. With him were second coxswain Peter Wood and crew members Carl Beardmore, Tom Bird, Andrew Jenkin, Dave Nichol and Dave Proud. The Coast Guard emergency towing vessel Anglian Princess had been tasked to help, but she was in Mounts Bay. It would be 3 hours before she would arrive on scene. Until she arrived, Falmouth was asked to stand by. So too was Foy's all-weather Trent lifeboat, the Morris and Joyce Hardy.
Once we got on scene, we'd lost the lee from the Lizard, and as we came on station, we turned upwind into it, and it was pretty bad. We had a good 6 metres sort of swell at that time.
Coxswain Mark Pollard sent Tom Bird and Carl Beardmore to the upper steering position to set up searchlights. Once they'd done this, they soon lit up the casualty. It was at this point that Mark Pollard moved from the safety of the wheelhouse to take command from that exposed upper steering position, the flying bridge. Mark was to command the lifeboat from this exposed position without relief for the next hour and a half. For the crew too, these were times of maximum danger.
Once we got on scene, myself and Tom were up on the flybridge with searchlights, so we had first-hand experience of exactly what was up there. And to put a searchlight on to see, and then have to point it up in the air to try and see over, or to see what was coming, was pretty horrendous. You know, breaking seas, I would say, a good 30-40 feet.
The deck was moving around a lot, holding the heaving line in both hands. It was impossible to hold on to anything. So it was just a case of trying to keep your balance.
Just getting around the deck was extremely difficult.
Galena was beam on to the weather, completely blacked out, no power, just the mercies of the weather, really.
It reminded me, and we've all spoken about it, a bit like the Marie Celeste. No lights, you know, nobody could be seen, and just a whole drifting. And we knew where she was going if something wasn't done.
The towing vessel was giving an ETA of 2 hours. I think there wouldn't have been enough time for the Coast Guard tug to get its tow line up.
Meanwhile, the Galena was drifting steadily northwards, getting closer and closer to the rocks of Dodman Point. And she was running out of 3 things: time, sea room, and options.
The best option we had at that time was for our lifeboat to try and establish a tow. We've got slightly more power than Keith's boat. Just get a line up and hold it until the tug came.
After asking Galena's master to stand by to receive a tow line, Foy was to take up position downwind, act as man overboard guard, in case anyone on the coaster was washed away.
Well, we had sort of 3 sets of eyes, really. I had Tom and Carl up on board, up on the flying bridge, and me with spotlights. Obviously Tom facing aft, illuminating the Galena, and Carl illuminating forward. You couldn't see what was coming towards you. All you could see was the tops of the breaking waves coming towards you. It was a job holding the boat in position long enough for the guys to get heaving line up. You know, you're having to use 100% power just to manoeuvre the boat and hold it in station.
Dave and Pete were trying their best to put the lines across, and it was really hard to sort of try and throw without falling over.
The wind was having a great effect on the heaving line, and in fact the last throw, which was the final successful one, I actually threw it well up in the air so the wind took it over the boat.
In difficult, hazardous conditions, with Galena now just 2.5 miles off Dodman Point, the tow was made fast to the heaving line and hauled across. Juggling the controls took exceptional skill and seamanship, as slowly power was applied, and the Richard Cox Scott began to drag Galena's head through the weather and onto a safe course for home. At 02:11, 1 hour and 44 minutes after arriving on scene, the Falmouth lifeboat reported to Falmouth Coast Guard. The situation was under control. They were heading southeast at just 1 knot.
When the tug arrived on scene with all the deck lights on, everything illuminated, he said, look behind, I looked behind, it was bubbling. Carl was saying that the waves were hissing as they went past him.
At 03:35, Anglian Princess reported that a new tow had been connected and that they had started to tow Galena back into Falmouth. The Foy lifeboat was released, whilst the Falmouth lifeboat would act as escort. It was just as well. 4 minutes later, Galena's tow suddenly parted, and with Falmouth's lifeboat in close attendance, a new tow was quickly established with the Anglian Princess. At 05:12, 5.5 hours after their pagers first went off, the Falmouth lifeboat was released. For the Falmouth crew and their new coxswain, it had been an ordeal and test that they would not forget. Thanks to their fortitude, 8 lives had been saved that dark and stormy November night.